everyone. Welcome to the GRCSU school board meeting. If we could all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. So first up is approval of the agenda, additions, deletions, and changes.
I'll make the motion.
Okay. I would like to move contract recommendations to after executive session and add an executive session for contracts personnel.
I'll make the adjustment.
Thank you, Mike. Anyone else? All in favor?
Aye.
It's unanimous. Thank you. Next up is general public comments. Anyone online or in the room want to say anything? Seeing no hands, we'll move on to our GRCSU staff and student highlights. And this evening we are blessed to welcome some students and faculty from Poultney Elementary and High School. So, Kristen, do you want to start?
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
I just want to introduce my MTSS leaders, Maureen Cahill and Tia Hughes. They are the queens. They've really set the stage for a lot of growth professionally for our staff as well as our students, and I'm going to let them.
I'm Tia Hughes. I've been teaching since 1995, and I've been teaching at Poultney since 2003.
I'm Maureen. I've been teaching since 1989, and I came to Poultney in 1993. We've been around here a while.
We're here to discuss their MTSS system. This is a multi-tiered system of support and approach for instruction and intervention. It is comprehensive. It's a systematic process, maximizing the opportunities to learn for students in any content area. It emphasizes the importance of effective, culturally responsive, and differentiated teaching, and early intervention supports for both academic and behavior for all students. Early intervention supports, prior to making a referral for special education, these steps are taken. The Vermont Agency of Education has identified this multi-layered system as a major component of school improvement and effectiveness.
And before we tell you all the changes that we put in place this year, it's important that you kind of understand what's required. There are 5 purposes to the school-based teams. The first one is to review school-wide academic and behavioral data and evaluate the effectiveness of core instruction. Universal and layer 1 is at the classroom level. We also need to screen all students and identify those students needing additional support, intervention, or enrichment. We also consult with classroom teachers regarding universal and targeted evidence-based strategies to increase student achievement. Our 4th purpose is to plan, implement, and modify academic or behavioral interventions for these students. And finally, it's to determine when students who have received substantial support are in need of a referral to the evaluation team.
First, all students are universally screened in areas of reading, math, and social emotional behavior. The screening process does take place usually about the 2nd or 3rd week in the fall, and then again in the wintertime and in the spring. And each time those data points are looked at very closely. Currently we're using FastBridge to complete the universal screeners.
They've seen all those reports.
Oh, perfect. Let's see. We also look at attendance, behavioral referrals, additional classroom assessments and tests. Interventionists and classroom teachers look at the data very closely, by the way. We see there is growth, where there is growth, where there is regression, and then we work as a team to come up with a plan for every student. If a student falls between 40% to 21, within the 21%, we head to a layer 1, which is an intervention within the classroom, which we call universal.
So this can look like many different things. usually involves research-based instruction, and this is where our school, at the end of last year, looked at our data and really made some changes. So it could be small groupings, it could be extra flashcards, it could be lots of different things. We went back to a program we used years before, spellography. We added a phonemic awareness program called Bridge the Gap. And next year, we are already piloting and looking for a comprehension piece. The idea is that the more tools that we give classroom teachers to put in their toolkits, the better it serves our students. And then we progress monitor them, classroom teachers progress monitor them using FastBridge every other week.
And the progress monitors are usually fairly short. Sometimes they're a 3-minute check-in. Sometimes they'll think the longest one is like 10 minutes. But to dovetail on what Maureen said, the fact is we want to make sure that we're using research-based, evidence-based programs, so we're going to get the best bang for our buck. We don't want to waste our time, the teacher's times, or the student times. If the student falls below 20%, then we move to layer 2. Students who are identified as falling to demonstrate adequate progress in universal intervention are determined by the progress monitoring data shall receive targeted intervention. So targeted interventions are, again, evidence-based, and what you want to do is it's usually sometimes 3 times a week for maybe 20 minutes or so. You try to have your interventions in which there's not the actual reading instruction or math instruction. You're adding it on to and supplementing what the student is already getting, giving them a double dose. So also, let's see, recommended length of time student spends in intervention will vary depending on such factors as the skill that's being worked on, the rate of the student's progress. You might find after 6 to 7 weeks or even the 8th week that the student, you can see the data points going up, and you just know that because there's such great progress that student may not have to have any more intervention on that particular skill after that 7 to 8 week cycle. And so then either there's another skill they may need to work on, or maybe they're released from intervention. Let's see. Also, it depends also on their attendance and the fidelity of how well that actual intervention is implemented.
And those interventions occur outside of the classroom with us, and we progress monitor weekly, so that's one of the differences between the layer 1 and the layer 2. Next up comes layer 3. This is after we've done 5 days a week, 30 minutes. We've done it for 8 weeks, and we've checked in. And then we've done it another 8 weeks, and we may have changed something, and then we check it again. This is when we may have to fill out a form and refer to the for special ed referral. And that's when that happens.
All right, so if we followed all the steps, we do not have movement, then we move to the conversation with the team and the parents again about the special education referral. We are proud to say that this year we have found a great way for teachers, parents, and interventionists to document what they're doing. In fact, they have been doing this in the classroom, but we didn't have a clear pathway to document the information. We send out a form and the teacher fills in their students' data prior to the meeting. It is a way for all of us to make sure we don't leave any information out or have any holes. We meet with teachers and special educators to discuss data in the whole classroom, This has proven invaluable as we are all on the same page. We have actually trained our special educators to use FastBridge to monitor their goals. They are required to collect data weekly anyway, so they might as well use what we're using. Not all of the data is the same, so we've really become more of a unified group. Classroom teachers have been meeting with grades 3 through 6, or classroom teachers met in grades 3 through 6 to discussions monthly on curriculum and how to make the most of the research that we're seeing. Grade K through 2 teachers meet monthly to learn how to use math manipulatives to enhance students' understanding of math concepts, because research shows that if you're touching it first and manipulating it, and then you're going to the pictorial, and then paper pencil, then you're going to have better success.
And because we're seasoned, we're not done yet.
Refined.
Here's what we're looking forward. We've made great growth this year, and all of the staff is super proud of the growth that we've made in this area. But there's still room for improvement, so we're really hoping for a social emotional learning curriculum. Ideally, pre-K through 12, that's the dream. I will say COVID has really caused a hiccup with this, and so that's something that would help us greatly. Another thing that came to mind is that we used to offer, I'm going to call it parenting education, but that's not really what it was. It just was a way to increase parents' knowledge, maybe games that they can play at home with kids about math, or maybe different ways that they can help them. So something with parents to make them understand more about Common Core and proficiency, because we often hear that's not the way I was taught. So to just kind of make the common language. Another thing we're looking for is ways to build background knowledge for our students, because one of the number of predictors of comprehension is a student's background knowledge. It's really hard to read a story about the ocean if you have no concept of what that is. So that's another thing we're trying to figure out how to do. We are also trying to figure out truancy and the tardy policy. So if we have a student who's tardy, let's say 100 days a school year, but shows up around 10:30 to 11, they may miss all of ELA. Do we wonder why they might be struggling with reading? So a way to maybe fine-tune how we do that. We understand that it's based on the state, but maybe we can look at what's best for our system now in this post-COVID era, as well as when you're absent. And last but not least, we're looking to really connect more with our pre-kindergarten. That's not a section that we've connected with yet, and trying to keep our teacher-student ratios low.
At Poultney
Elementary.
school.
Yeah, I'm discussing Poultney.
Yeah.
Where we are, all of our schools, some of us are, we're all in different places because the change is huge from the way it used to be.
But that pre-kindergarten brain is that time when they're like 4 years old, is the time when they learn to share. They learn to respect their environment. That's when they actually learn those social emotional skills. So if you've got some students that aren't making it to leapfrog, or you're not making it to the actual program within the school because A, there's not space, or they don't know of it, whatever, that's a problem. So the gap is just increasing. So therefore, unless we lay that foundation and keep those ratios low and deal with the flexibility of the brain at that level, that's our key.
Well, and I think Poultney Pre-K is piloting a program with MTSS, and you'll hear more about that from Sarah. But so we're all excited about having that being another opportunity for us to bring in those interventions at the youngest level we can actually in the school.
Who are they piloting with? Poultney Pre-K is piloting a program with who?
There's a grant that was received.
Okay.
MTSS.
Thank you.
Does anyone have any questions for us?
And we talked fast, and there's certain lingo in education, so if you don't understand, please ask. Like you might not know what ELA means even. I mean, you know, there's just lingo. I know. No. I'm just saying it's the lingo. You know? Yes.
I had a question, and I think I already know the answer, but I just figured I'd ask. Do you flag students at the high end of the Fast Bridge and do any interventions with them as well?
We've been following a couple this year.
We've actually had students who may be in the 3rd grade level that attend sometime in the 4th grade. You know, if they're off the charts in math, so to speak. So we do things like that as well.
How about up in the middle school or high school? That's not you, right? So you only go up to 6th?
Yes.
Okay.
And we'd like to not just flag those uppers, spend more time working with them, but unless we help our youngs, so we don't have as much at the upper level, there's not a lot of time to fit that in. So we've got to work from the ground up.
And you've identified 5 things that you would like. and you know me, that I'm a, practical person. And has that been built into our budget for next year? So you're going to get this stuff, or are we at the talking stages?
We just came up with these because we're getting to the end of the year.
Okay.
And we just had our kind of reflective meeting.
So we need to keep these in our head for the start.
Well, and in regard to the social emotional, we do have an additional counselor coming for the next year, so that's very important.
But they were talking about a curriculum.
Right, and I know we're working on that at the district level.
Yeah.
But as you all know, if you don't have the social emotional piece,
right,
then you're not going to be able to teach the math or
right,
the reading or
right.
So it's just like those building blocks, that has to be first.
And I am on
the games at home to help parents. Yep. Because you hear a lot from parents today saying, I don't understand what my child is doing in math. I don't understand what my child... So if they had some way where they could play a game with the child and they knew that that was going to help.
So that's one of our plans.
I like that a lot.
That's one of our improvement plans.
Right, we had talked about having a math night and having the families come in and make games that they, so kind of like a make and take workshop, so to speak. It just hasn't come to fruition just because of time, not because of lack of support or anything like that.
Right, so that's why it's on the docket for next year, as well as reading and writing.
And the filling in of background knowledge. I mean, we've talked about that forever.
Field trip to the beach.
Yeah.
So thinking of a parent for a moment, because now our children are grown, but by the time you do dinner, and by the time you have a shower and done a little bit of homework, if they're, you really have 10 minutes. So we've got to find things that they can do quickly and efficiently. And maybe even parent meetings are not necessarily in person. Maybe they are virtual, because that's all the time they have. Because that's the reality. They have 10 minutes.
So see, we're trying to anticipate all the roadblocks to our wishes and improvements to try and put them into place before we get to next school year.
And it sounds like the tardy thing is a big thing also that needs to.
Oh, yes, and the attendance. And this is a statewide thing, but you folks would need to help us in taking a stronger stand on that.
So we need to look at
How is the communication and how are the parents? I think it's a tremendous program. How are the parents understanding it, and are they? Or do you guys find yourselves? I mean, obviously, some parents want faster escalation up versus like letting the system work. Are you having?
So it depends on the parent. It's really individualized. There are some parents that I've been at their house to talk to them about their child because they can't make time to come to school and they don't have the technology necessarily to come meet online. So we have to meet parents where they are right now. Yeah, I think. And then some.
Are there any tools we can give you to help that bridge that gap? Because I think a lot of either non-communication's happening, not from the fault of you, or maybe this home situation. How do we bridge that to get the parents engaged that this is the process we're going through to help everybody?
And once the parents, if they end up at an MTSS meeting where we write the plan, the first question, we've already asked the child, we've already asked the teacher, but the first question we ask the parent, what's going well this year and what do you feel needs to change? Those are the first two questions we ask.
And we get excited about this because we're really nerdy, but guess what? But anyway,
they really are.
We also do the student, we've been adding the student observation of how the student thinks he or she is doing. And that's been huge too. But the nice part is we have a Promethean board in our intervention room. So if the parent is able to come, which we've been trying to be a little more flexible with times, they can see it. And I mean, just reading a graph is a little tricky just because if you haven't seen the format. But I think over time we explain it and they can see the dots. So I think it's a process, but I think it's
But I think a lot of what the parents can do also come out of the data meetings. So I meet with every classroom teacher with that grade special educator present for English language arts. And we run through every student, and some of the ideas maybe to ask the parent to do fluency at home, and one of the three of us will make that call. And then Tia also meets with every teacher and that special educator for math. so that way everybody is getting almost an individualized program when it comes to data.
And I don't want to forget to say that a lot of times I would just like to let you know how much I appreciate all the pre-work that goes in, because they do come when we're having a meeting. Often there will be supplies or materials handed to the parent to take home. So that's really nice. So that's already, that piece is already cut out.
We're evolving and we're attempting to get better as we go, learning as we go.
What percentage of classrooms are seeing intervention?
All of them.
No, but I mean, what percentage of your students, ballpark?
Oh, let's see. I'm 66 out of, what, 220, whatever percentage is that?
235 is what you have in
whatever that is.
your
And
school.
It was 66 divided by 235.
66 out of 235, yeah. And that's, I mean,
I have 55, 56 students, but I only see students in grades 1, 4, 5, and 6.
And of course, we still have our COVID lumps, right? Which makes sense.
Which would be
Which
the
is
4,
grade-
5, and 6.
Yeah, the grade. All right, we could probably go on forever.
Yes,
We probably, because we
but
are.
so in summary, a lot. So there's a lot of
Yes.
kids out there, and
Yes.
these programs are very important.
And my position is new this year. 4, 5, and 6 hasn't had intervention since 1994. I know because I was the last one to do it.
Yep, you were.
So
And we're
it's-
just on the beginning cycles of you guys doing this to see the
so-
progress in the
right.
district and in the supervisory union. I'm
Right,
saying
that's
this
why I
more,
wanna-
saying more for the people that may or may not
Yeah,
be
that's why I
listening.
need to get my hands on those littles, you know?
Yeah.
Not,
I asked you if you wanted to teach kindergarten years ago.
and I'm going to say no, thank you.
Are we doing the same thing in all the schools?
Yes.
Yes.
MTSS,
Okay,
yes.
so are you talking with the interventionists that are in the other school too?
Yep, we meet
And they
yes,
follow
yes.
the
We
same
meet with
process?
Lisa
Okay.
twice a month.
Yes.
And that's where the conversation occurs. And we all talk about we make agreements, but Lisa has said, in the end, you may have to make the decision that's best for your school because that may not work where you are,
Right.
which is lovely. So we all have parent input, we all have teacher input on our forms, we all collect the same data, we all have the same forms. Where it's different might be the interventions that the classroom teachers use. And I'm looking at her to try and figure out.
You're doing great.
I'm trying to remember what other the differences are, but twice a month maybe.
But the nice part is because like Rutland Town has been doing intervention a bit longer. So when I was looking for last year, I was like, oh my gosh, I need a research-based problem solving for math problem solving. And they said to me, well, have you tried this? And I tried it. I was like, oh my gosh, this is fabulous. So we learn from each other.
What is your saying that's in your room that I love? What is that?
Mistakes
make new learning. That
No,
one?
it's that one you wanted to, we were gonna build a banner for it.
The universe.
No
has
one
no
gets
idea.
Universe
left
has no-
behind, or,
Oh.
what was the word?
It matters to one.
It matters to one.
Yeah, we were gonna wear those t-shirts.
Yeah, it
matters to
it's
one.
fantastic. I love that. It matters to one. Good for you.
Well, thank you. Thank you. And I'm excited that you guys are actually going to get to speak with some of my students from last year. I don't want to sell them up, but they're pretty amazing.
We're excited to have them. Keith?
I subbed for your room runs itself.
Is it okay to move on to the next?
Yeah.
Okay. So this evening, we're also lucky to have Keith Harrington and some of the students that did very well in History Day this year. So Keith, do you want to introduce them?
Voices. I talk a lot, as they can tell you.
Hello.
Why are we all shaking our heads though? I'll let my students introduce themselves, but this group of young ladies did a great job this year. We participate every year in the Vermont History Day competition, which takes place the first Saturday in April at the Davis Center at UVM. And quick little story. When I first got into this, we were talking about, you guys were just talking about the data with, we identified the higher ed kids that are scoring high on the FAST Bridge. And when I first came to Poultney, we actually had a gifted and talented program. and the whole district had gifted and talented programs, so those kids were being identified. And one of the programs they were involved in was this Vermont History Day program. And when our teacher at the time, Pam Lewis her name was, left and moved to South Carolina to teach, she came to me and said, I think you should be the History Day teacher. And I said, well, I don't know what I'm doing. And she more or less said, you can have my nice computer if you take over the History Day program. So I said, okay, sounds like a good deal. And I remember going to the first competition the first year and saying to my wife, you know, this will be all over today. There's no way we're ever going to win. This is my first time doing it. I have no clue what I'm doing. And we qualified, I think, 6 or 8 kids that year to nationals, and we've not missed nationals since. This is my 19th year involved, and we've made nationals 19 years in a row. So pretty impressive for a small school district. And you know, I give all the credit all the time to kids like these 3 right here, because they're dedicated, they work hard. It's a long process because we start in the fall and we end up together and hopefully in Washington, D.C. in June. So we're kind of like family. We squabble sometimes like family, but we work hard together like family, and the end product is a great product at the end. And I've talked to Lisa a little bit about bringing it to the whole district, because the research shows, you know, Tia and Maureen were talking about the research. You know, everything in education is so research driven nowadays. The research shows that kids who participate nationally in History Day score higher on standardized tests, because it really encompasses all of our proficiencies. When we used to have our district teacher meetings one day a month, I was constantly, when we were talking about history, saying, you know, they would say, we need to know how we're going to cover this proficiency, how we're going to cover this proficiency. And I just kept sitting there going, I'm here in History Day. I'm here in History Day. This is all History Day. So, you know, hopefully I'd like to take some steps to bring this more to the district, because I think we're the only school right now doing History Day at Poultney High and Poultney Elementary, and the value is incredible. Whether you go to National History Day or not, you know, the proficiencies that you're meeting just in this one, and to me, it's not even it's an extracurricular thing with the high school kids, but with my 6th graders, it's the curriculum we use for social studies. It's every day in our class. So these young ladies made it this year for Sabina and Emma on the end. It's their 2nd straight year of making nationals, and Abby is the picture of perseverance. She tried in 5th, didn't make it, tried in 6th, tried in 7th, and made it. So I was really proud that, you know, she didn't give up. Hard work pays off, and this year she's going to nationals. So you guys can go introduce yourself and tell about your project.
Okay, so I'm Sabina Kraus.
I'm Emma Boyer. I'm Abigail Rose.
So Mr. Harrington has already covered what we did. So we went to the state competition on April 6th this year, and we got 2nd. So 2nd and 1st, both of those, if you place in either of those, you can advance to the national competition. So we have the opportunity to advance, and so History Day is like, I think personally that it's a great opportunity to learn about something of your choice, because in school you kind of like have a set learning, like, I don't know what it's called. Curriculum, yeah. So you kind of, it's all already laid out for you. So when you do History Day, you kind of get to like choose, what do you want to learn about? Do you guys have anything to add?
So our class, like, the theme, and this year's theme was turning points in history. So we were researching some turning points in history that we found interesting, and then we all 3 of us decided to do the Browns Board of Education this year. Yes. Out of the couple that we were researching to do.
We were also going to do Title IX, but I did Title IX last year, so we weren't able to do it this year.
What category? Like, did you do play? Did you do?
Oh, yeah.
What was your?
We decided to do the documentary category this year because we've had experiences with doing videos, so we knew
how the structure would be to do a documentary. We got like our script all made up. After we finished doing our research, we got our script. And then we really started to record and get pictures. We had some interviews of Linda Brown in there as well.
So Linda Brown is, her father, Oliver Brown, was, well, Brown, it's like Brown versus Board of Education, so like, Oliver Brown went to a white school, and he tried to enroll his daughter, Linda Brown. So that's who Linda Brown is. So we thought it was pretty cool to have like an eyewitness because it like happened to her. It's not somebody who knows about it and was just talking about it. It's someone who like knew about it.
Like as Sabina was saying, Linda Brown, her father, he went inside of the main office and then was like saying how he wants his daughter to go to summer school, and they made Linda Brown sit in the lobby and they told her that she was not allowed to go to that school because she was African American.
Yeah, so that's kind of about our topic. So for fundraising wise, we have been, sorry. So fundraising wise, we had a bottle drive last Saturday. And we sat at the dump for 8 hours. And we collected bottles and sorted them and did stuff like that. Yeah, we all got sunburned. And then we also got a donation from the Booster Club. And we've been collecting donations from local businesses. So we're from the animal. So we also got a $1,000 donation from the NAACP.
Nice.
Yeah. So we're just over halfway. We're around $4,000. We did the math last night. We're around $4,000, and we need between $6,500 and $8,000 to cover lodging for everybody, meals for everybody, gas, yeah. So we have been working very hard to fundraise. Do you guys have anything to add?
If we don't like raise enough money, then we have to pay out of pocket.
Yeah. Any questions about anything?
You did good. You really, you did a lot of work.
When are you going to go to History Day?
So that's June.
We're leaving June 7th.
We're leaving June 7th.
We present on the 9th.
Yeah.
And then we'll get back on the 11th or 12th of June.
Yeah.
And Sabina and Emma, last year, the way it works at National History Day, because it's not like the Vermont competition where there's maybe 10 or 15 entries in your category, there's possibly 2 from every state, plus Puerto Rico, American Samoa, the Department of Defense, Europe, so there's over 100 in every category, so they divide it into rooms because the judges can't watch 100 categories in a day, or 100 entries in a day. And last year you guys were in your room, we're 4th in our room, the top 2 in each room make the national finals. We've never had anyone come that close to making so they were literally 2 spots away from making the national finals. So that's pretty great.
I think last year it was like 90 students in our category.
90 entries, yeah.
Yeah.
So as I said to them, if you were top 4 in your room, you were technically probably like, out of the 90, you were probably like top 20, top 25 in the country. So.
Now, will you guys do the same presentation, or do you spice it up a little more to fine tune it?
So we use the same presentation, but we can like improve our project if we want to. Like we
think that like we stuttered or whatever on our recordings that we did, we could redo them or add like different pictures that we think go more meaningful or like different interviews to it to like improve our project.
Yeah, so we have like a certain amount of time from the end of the state competition to, we have like a deadline. I don't know.
A week from today.
A week from today, yeah.
Very cool.
I don't know what today is, but,
And I'm also up for the National Teacher of the Year award too. I've won the Vermont one 3 times, and I keep saying this maybe 3rd time's a charm type of thing. So they pick a teacher from each state every year, and every time they do the teacher award, I say to those guys, "Oh, I'm not going to get it. I've already gotten it." Then I get it. So I don't have any, thoughts of winning the national one, but it would be kind of cool.
Good luck. For a little piece of history today, I believe now I've been told it's referred to as the transfer station, not the dump.
Love that.
As a parent, can I say something as a parent? You asked if they're doing anything to spice up their documentary, and honestly, all of their time has been going into fundraising. I mean, since they got back, since they placed, the parents, we just looked at each other like, all right, game on, let's do this. Let's do something better than flipping burgers and making $0 than last year. So all of their efforts have been going into, they've been walking door to door in Poultney saying, is there anything that you can donate? And they've gotten bottle drives. When I tell you the bottle drive, Poultney Pub gave them all of their bottles for the week. Toad Burger gave them all their bottles for the week. These girls were not sitting at the dump. They were hustling. They got tips just for helping bring things. Every day they were sitting down and saying, okay, who can we apply to? Who can we, and right now we're talking about a GoFundMe to get things up and running because there are family members out of state that can't, they don't know what's going on, and so a website really links everything together. So the spicing of the documentary, I think that will come, right? But a lot of it has just been fundraising and math and budgeting. So I wanted to say that as watching them do amazing things.
Have you contacted the Rotary in Poultney for
Yes.
a donation?
The Rotary has always donated to us. I did
Okay.
send them one of our letters. I just haven't heard back yet. So if you have any connections there.
I have someone I can see tomorrow.
And what we've done before too is they still have the breakfast once a month or whatever.
Yeah, I believe they do.
We used to go to Tots, Tots isn't there anymore, but we used to go to wherever they had their breakfast, and our students would actually show their presentation, and then they would usually donate after. They kind of made us come and work for it a little bit, which is great because we like to show off the project, so that's great.
We'll get a sunburn that way.
Yeah.
Right.
Thank you very much for coming tonight.
Yes, thank you.
Congratulations and good luck with everything.
thank you.
You are welcome to stay, but we are transitioning into the boring part of the meeting. So if you'd like to go, feel free.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Keith, if you need help with the fish, let me know.
Oh yeah, I'll give you a call. Get your net shined up.
All right. Just trout in the classroom.
All right, that was lovely. Okay, we're on to the consent agenda now. Approval of the minutes from April 2nd. Thank you, Mike. I had 3 little grammatical things I'll let Christine know about. Page 1, 4, and 7. Any other comments, discussion?
Are they just typos or something?
They're just typos, yeah. Just like date was wrong. Simple stuff.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, so all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Approval of warrants.
So moved.
Thank you, Eric. All in favor? Strategic plan update and superintendent's report.
Good evening, everyone. Obviously, I am not Chris, but I am happy to review anything in his report that I can address or answer for you. He did include the graduation dates for all of our schools, along with a few updates from AOE facility work and upcoming VSBA workshops that are available, as well as a calendar of events for special occasions going on for the remainder of the school year, which is fast passing. But if there are any questions on that report, I'm happy to take them back to him or try and answer them.
I had a question. I was under the impression that the PCB sampling was on a pause. And this is news that we have some scheduled, so.
Yeah, so my understanding, they had scheduled multiple schools over a multiple year period of time, and then hit the pause button, but some of the schools were already on the schedule before that pause happened. So
will the pause doesn't take effect till they run out of a certain
till they run out of money, right? There's like a dollar threshold.
So, but if they're doing the testing and they're still fixing other schools, there could very well be you have it, but we don't have any money left, right?
That is a distinct possibility.
Correct. Yep.
Something that wasn't fully thought through. Shocking.
Interesting.
I mean, there has been a lot of conversation at the state level about, you know, the way that this program was rolled out and how there are some elements of it that are problematic, in particular that the funding was not fully allocated to support the entire program. So I know the state is working through that process and trying to figure out what it is.
Thank you.
So strategic plan, there is a report in your board packet, and I'm also just going to put the presentation up on the screen for those who may not be here. So this was again part of our strategic plan process for this year, that we said we would come to the board on a quarterly basis and present an update on our progress for year one of our strategic plan. And so this is some background information. Our portrait of a graduate is included, our current vision and mission, which I know we're going to continue the conversation about this evening. And then the three areas of our priority areas of our strategic plan are academic success, school climate and culture, and community engagement and communication. So all of our goals and strategies were centered around those areas throughout the year-long strategic planning process. And this is just for everyone's reference. These are the goals that we had set for year one in this area. So this is academic success, goal one. We have 3 goals under academic success. So this is the first goal area, and these are the initiatives that we had outlined for the year and had presented last August, I believe, to everyone. And then the next slide, you'll see it says highlights and updates. And so for each of the slides where it says highlights and updates, that's what's new since our last report before you. And so in the area of academic achievement and student growth in literacy and math, some of the key initiatives that we have undertaken in the last 3 to 6 to 9 months include the teacher work groups around curriculum and the indicators that we're working on. During March in-service, our teachers reviewed indicator documents and provided recommendations and feedback on those documents. They had been teaching them this year. For those of you who've been here, we had developed them, and then they were fully implementing them, and now we're reflecting on them and getting their feedback on recommended revisions for moving forward as a kind of continuous improvement cycle with that work. We also had a 6th through 8th grade math teacher group get together to talk about what the sequence of learning activities would need to look like to make Algebra 1 an available offering to students in 8th grade across our schools, and we'll be convening them again in a few weeks to continue that conversation. We have started the evaluation of the math program. If you remember that curriculum framework that Jen McLemore had come with me and presented a while ago around the sequence of curriculum topics and when we're going to tackle kind of each major area. We had started last year with literacy. We're starting this year with math while we continue the literacy work. So that's kind of the next step forward in that process for us. And we have a team working on some preliminary research and recommendations in that area. We had a math menu course that was open to all K-8 teachers across our supervisory union that was hosted at Proctor Elementary School this spring, and we had a lot of interest in that course, and we're looking into being able to try and offer it again over the summer for teachers who are interested. That goes along with our math, sort of workshop alignment and trying to start to have a math block framework established for the district. We took a look at the cognitive formative assessments, which were brand new this year, which we only recently got access to in the last few months, and we have aligned them with our priority indicator documents now for teachers. Again, for those of you who have been here, we used to have the SBAC interims aligned with our curriculum documents to help teachers identify a formative assessment tool for each of our indicators, and so now we've updated those with the new tool at our disposal provided by the state. And we've supported the implementation of VitCap this year and cognitive formatives and a lot of professional development for our staff in those areas. Our UFly phonics pilot has been ongoing, and we are just starting we've done data collection through progress monitoring for the entire time, but we're just starting the final data collection of the year for that program. And we'll be making recommendations very soon for what comes next. We've also surveyed all staff and done a bunch of other things to gather some data on that piece. And there was an inventory that was conducted for all math and ELA curriculum programs, along with principal interviews and other work to really try and get a good handle on where we have resources existing right now in each of our schools, what those are, and how we can start building some commonalities. Some more updates here. We've had book clubs all year long, aligned with our strategic plan initiatives. Our middle school administrators recently participated in the New England League of Middle Schools Conference and have been debriefing that experience and talking about next steps in planning. And we have all year long been participating in the instructional leadership work with University of Washington Center for Education Leadership around the vision for instruction and having our principals have a calibrated and common vision of instructional excellence, talking about what we're all trying to work toward, ensuring that we have a common framework and language for talking about those conversations with teachers and moving our own professional practice forward as a team. You heard a lot about the MTSS system today and the pieces that we're working on, but we've done a lot of system revision this year and trying to expand into social emotional areas. We have our new secondary intervention areas that we've been supporting, and just lots of work making that system more functional, improving it in building the pieces of it that will allow us to be truly pre-K-12 comprehensive. We had an early literacy learning community this year that was sponsored by the Agency of Education, and we had a small group of teachers who participated in that. That is also wrapping up, and we'll be recruiting for next year for that program. We're working on curriculum adoption and updating procedures alongside with the curriculum framework to try to routinize, streamline, make that procedure really clear for everybody, and make it the same across our schools. And we have completed our math audit and are processing the report alongside with the consultants. So I'll stop there for just 1 minute before I move to the next goal. And are there any questions about any of those items related to Goal 1 at this time?
Who are the middle school administrators that participated?
Joe DeBonis, Jen McLemore, Jay Slinker, Mike Lamar from Rutland Town, and myself.
So No teachers.
Not for this year. It was our first time going to this conference, so we took our administrative team to check it out. We do have teachers participating in a middle school book group that's focused. They're reading the book Magic in the Middle, and they've been talking, again, cross-school group about the middle school model all year during PD days.
What is the goal of the math audit? Is it just to try to streamline the number of programs that we're using in the SU, or is there another motive?
So the math audit it's really just an audit. We did a literacy audit 2 years ago, and in a similar vein of having an objective third party come in, look at what is the inventory of materials, strategies, instructional approaches being used across our schools, observing in classrooms, interviewing families, teachers, administrators, interventionists, getting their perceptions on their experiences and the effectiveness of those programs, and then summarizing it. And they provide sort of findings, themes, or patterns that emerge across schools. What are areas of strength in our programs? What are areas where we could continue to focus our work? And they make some recommendations about what we might do as next steps based on what they've heard and seen in all of our schools. So it's kind of like a mirror. And then we take that information and we turn it into goals in these areas that we'll work on for a number of years. Like a lot of the work that's happening in literacy that you see in this plan is based on what came out of our literacy audit a few years ago.
Thanks.
Most of the goals are shorter than this, so you're going to get a lot of information up front and it'll go much faster as we go. So goal number 2 for us in academic success is expanding enrichment and post-secondary opportunities for all pre-K-12 students. And you saw a group tonight that's doing exactly one of the things that we want to try to capture and support across our schools. So we have taken a look at kind of what service learning and community service opportunities might look like in a formal structure by surveying what's happening in some other schools in our area and learning about who has community service or service learning requirements, what do those look like, how are they tied into graduation requirements, the proficiencies. So we're in sort of the information gathering phase of that goal area. We're trying to increase student access to existing enrichment programming, and in part thanks to the generous support of this board, we have been able to allocate additional ESSER funding to all of our schools in 2 rounds now that this board has authorized to support enrichment programming, and all of our schools have been able to take advantage of that and increase opportunities for students in so many ways. And what we have done is we have shared that information with each other. So we have a spreadsheet functionally, and every month we ask our principals to go in and update that spreadsheet with what opportunities they've been able to make available to students in their schools, and look at what other people have put on there so that the principals can see what other people are trying. They can talk to them about it, they can reach out, they can collaborate. And our principals are working really hard to try to cross-post and cross-promote opportunities for students and families. One sort of fun thing that's happening at West Rutland really soon is the Wizards basketball showcase, where it's like the Harlem Globetrotters of old days, where they come and they do kind of like a demonstration performance. The team plays against the staff. They have a lot of fun, and there's lots of prizes and activities, and like they of course promoted that within West Rutland, but then also shared that opportunity to all the families in the GRCSU for families who might want to participate in that, and they'll have some companion activities that happen at their school building for their students as part of that whole process. So just one example of how they're trying to share opportunities across schools. And I know you'll remember Proctor High School at the beginning of the year, where they had the big math festival activity that almost all of our other elementary schools got to go to, and some of our high schools too. So it's allowed a lot more collaboration and conversation among the principals to try to leverage things. So if somebody's hosting something or paying for something, like how can they get other kids there from other schools to take advantage of the opportunity, which is really exciting. And then career development, we've continued the career development work that we had started with the consultant Deb Singheiser in years past. Our secondary counselors have held career cafes and activities where students can go in and meet with professionals from regional businesses and learn about career opportunities and how those businesses are run. There have been some trips to career activities such as like the career fair at Castleton and other regional career exploration activities, and then some that have been brought in for the students as well. So we've continued that work. And then the last bullet is one that we had taken on for next year for strategic initiatives. And goal 3, I know you've heard from Bill Basic throughout the year about the Wellness Center and the work that we've been doing with alternative programming and continuing to try to expand access and the continuum of services for students across our schools. So that's been open. Bill has had ongoing conversations with the 712 administrative team and talking about programming, and I'm sure he'll have some more updates for you more specifically. And talking with our partner schools about their capacity, possible collaboration and partnership. Transportation continues to be a big piece of this puzzle and trying to make that work. And we also had a change in bus route between Corey Valley and Wells Village School, between Poultney and Wells Village School, to try to reduce the loss of instructional time that was happening for students who were from Wells who were attending Poultney schools. So lots of different conversations about access. I'll stop there for a second too before I move on to the next section. Did someone? Jeff, go ahead.
Thanks for all that
You're very quiet. You're very quiet. I don't know why. Jeff, hang on.
We can't hear you.
Yeah,
sorry.
hang on one second. Let me try.
We hear your voice, but we can't understand it.
Let me try one other way to see if we can hear you a little better. Try now and see if that's any better.
Is that better now? Yes?
It is. There's a little echo, but I think we can work through it.
So, quick question. Thank you for the comprehensive update. How do the budgetary pressures on all of us, state, county, all the way down, affect what you're doing here? It looks like really good work here.
I'm going to switch back to the other volume system. Sorry, hang on one second. Okay. Obviously, they have an impact in terms of what we're prioritizing and how quickly we're moving in different areas. But I think that we made year one of our plan knowing what resources were available to us in year one, and we made some priorities and decisions about that. And we're in the process of making our plans for year two, knowing what resources are going to be available to us and what that looks like. And so we're really trying to have appropriate, reasonable, aggressive, but reasonable activities and goals and strategies planned that are based on the resources that we anticipate having available. And then there are some areas where we'll be coming back to the board and talking about how we want to move forward. For example, the elementary math program that we are looking at, that we want to move forward as a supervisory union together in adopting that program. And when we get to the place where we have a recommendation and we know what resources will be needed to implement that goal, then we'll be coming back to the board and talking about, here's what we think we have in our existing budget. Here are places where, we think we're going to either have to work things out over time, or we're going to need to find additional resources in next year's budget. And we'll have those conversations as part of the budgeting process. Does that answer your question? Thank you.
The comprehensive study for transportation, does that just apply to, what does that consist of? All the transportation in the SU or just special ed?
It's focused on students who are accessing specialized programming. Yep, that is outside of their regular school building for all or part of the day. Yeah. So in the next section of our strategic plan, which is school climate and culture, our goal area number 1 was around staffing and recruiting, retaining, and building the capacity of our staff members. And these were the strategic initiatives. I don't know what just happened. That we had outlined for that work. And some highlights and updates. We've continued to work on revised job descriptions for GRCSU employees as we've posted, so that they align with our organizational goals and are consistent across our schools. And then we have done a staff highlights feature this year, which I'm sure many of you have seen on social media, where every week in each school there's a spotlight of a staff member who works in that building and just introduces them to the community, tells a little bit about them, and celebrates them. And those are available on the website and also social media. So that was one of the new initiatives in this area this year. Goal 2, improving students' well-being and daily experience in our schools. That was the student perspective on the day-to-day. These were our strategic initiatives outlined at the beginning of the year. And some of our highlights so far, the multi-tiered system of supports group is continuing to work on programming, especially around social emotional learning, curricula needs, resources for teachers and students, and what professional development we need for staff to support work in those areas. And our EST teams have been working, as you heard from Poultney Elementary School, in every building on students who are struggling with any area of success and thriving in school, and how we can put plans in place and a structured process to support them. All of our middle and high schools took part in the Getting to the Why program this year, which was taking the data from the Vermont Youth Risk Survey and bringing a student-led team together to reflect on that data and to develop an action plan for their school based on that data and the needs of their peers as reported by the survey. So that's a student-adult partnership team, and we were able to engage in that. And then all of our elementary schools also participated in a companion program to that, which is called P2C2. Don't ask me to tell you what that acronym stands for, but it is basically the elementary version of that same approach, where the students do some surveying of their classmates, usually upper elementary grades, where the students are a little more fluid at self-reporting on things. And they take that data from their peers and they go through the same process of having a student-initiated plan for how to address areas of concern across their peer group. And the schools have had really, really positive feedback about that, and talking about the great conversations that students got to have about how to make things even better for each other.
I'll just speak to that real quick, because my daughter is part of the Getting to the Why, and I was like extremely impressed with what those kids did. I think you just said positive dialogue, but I think the parents and the kids were shocked by some of the things that even kids in our school go through and experience at home, and some of the suggestions that the kids delivered were like beyond what we would empathize with and things. So whatever's going on with that program, keep it up.
So our last area was community engagement and communication. And our first goal was to provide clear and consistent communication within and from our schools. And these were the initiatives we had identified at the beginning of the year. And some of the highlights, we have created some drafts of digital proficiency expectations for staff to review and implement, so their own proficiency level with communication tools, most of which are digital at this time, or have a digital base before they become printed publications. We have a draft of the SU communication plan, and that's SU-wide. I know Corey Valley had already done a lot of work with that, but now we've looked at the supervisory union-wide. And we've tried to share enrichment opportunities at schools, as I talked about, through lots of communication channels with our broader communities. And our second goal in that area was to ensure meaningful engagement with parents and students. And these were our initial strategies that we had designed to implement this year. And some of our highlights, we had parent-teacher conferences despite 2 snow days during parent-teacher conferences, both in the fall and the spring, which has never happened to us before. Persevered and have tried to meaningfully engage families, and we appreciate all of the flexibility for staff and families in making that happen with everyone anyway. And we've continued to collaborate with external organizations and partners, provided, again, programming, and for our enrichment opportunities this year, when we've been able to offer them in the evenings and connect with families or on weekends, like we tried to do that, like the math program at Proctor High School that we talked about, that then had an evening parent component to get parents involved in it as well. And we have a communication survey ready to go out for our staff on the communication strategies that we're currently using to collect some feedback in that area. And then our final area here, goal 3, was strengthening family and community partnerships. And these were our strategies. And some highlights, we implemented a Healthy Foods A to Z program across all elementary schools this year. And that's the first time that we've had a food-related, or nutrition-related program going on across all of our schools, which was exciting. And we talked about getting to the Y, the career cafes, all the extracurriculars we've been able to offer, and enrichment opportunities. So those are the pieces that we've been working on in those areas. So this is our May update, and then we will be back in August is our plan to come back again. And at that point, we'll be sharing year 2 goals and what is on the docket for next year in each of these areas. If anybody has any questions about any of that, I'm happy to entertain them.
Under the community engagement, I think you had mentioned a survey.
Mm-hmm.
When will that go out?
It's going out to staff pretty soon. We have it drafted. We're just trying to, we have a number of things that we need them to respond to at the end of the year, so we're trying to map out the timing of each of those and not send them all out in the same week. Overload their inboxes. But before the end of the school year.
And just curious, how are you, how do you gather the information that schools are maintaining their relationship with PTOs, booster clubs, things like that?
Part of our spreadsheet is also contains information on community partners. So we do try to have an informal kind of process for talking about just which community partners are working with which schools. I don't think that those lists are quite comprehensive yet for everybody, because we're so lucky that we have many community partners in many of our communities. I know PTOs specifically, as you mentioned it, have been a topic that the principals have spent a lot of time talking about this year, and that many of our schools are struggling to reboot PTOs after COVID, and things that were normally happening in their communities pre-COVID, and then everything changed, and now trying to get people re-engaged and figure out what the new normal is for what meetings look like, what collaboration looks like, what communication looks like, is definitely something that a lot of our schools are experimenting with right now.
I think Poultney's had some success with starting a PTO again, at the high school. I do belong to the Booster Club, so we're seeing that entity grow. It's growing in the amount of people that are involved. So things are slowly, I think, moving in the right direction, you know, post-COVID. But I think it's going to take a little bit of time to make up what we've lost over those 3 years.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
I'm next on the docket too, but you've already listened to me talk a long time, so I will humbly say that my assistant superintendent's report is in your folder, and if you have any questions about it, I'm happy to answer them. Other than we're wrapping up, right? We administered VIC-CAP, wrapping up the end of the year, planning for June professional development, and then all of next year planning is really our primary focus right now.
I was just curious if next month if it would be possible, I don't know if you'd be done, it may not be next month, maybe later, just to kind of walk us through what the math audit looks like. I know you just kind of described it, but I just want to, I'm curious what you learned, I guess, from it. Maybe not the whole process, but like, what were the finer points that you took from it?
Yeah, we can definitely bring some pieces forward. We haven't even met with the whole administrative team on it yet. That's scheduled for one of our upcoming admin PLCs, just because we've got some other timely things that we've needed to tackle in the interim. But our goal of that conversation with our admin team is to talk about processing and reflecting on the findings and the statements and identifying next steps that I think will be being captured in the strategic plan in August when we come to present what we think for next year.
And then my other question was CIPs. Are board members usually involved in this process? And I guess if you could just, like, I haven't heard anything about our school's CIP, so I was just curious, you know, has the process changed?
Yes and no. So the template has changed. Of course, the agency loves to change that like every year, which is great. And this year they released it at like the end of April, which was also really helpful because we'd already started working on our old templates. So that may be why you haven't heard yet from your school, because we rebooted the beginning of that process again in our schools. There's outreach to stakeholders, various stakeholders in the community, to ask for feedback and input on that plan. And when you want a range of stakeholders involved in that process, so it could be board members, could be parents, other community members, staff, and the agency has some recommended stakeholder groups for us to reach out to. So you should hear from your school communities through their normal communication channels about information and opportunities to be part of those review processes.
Do we ever get feedback as far as something like that through maybe a survey that's handed out to parents?
We don't usually, well, so possibly, and here's how that would be. If there was a goal or an initiative in the continuous improvement plan for a school that was related to them trying like a new approach or a new system, and then they might survey families or teachers or staff, whoever is appropriate, even students, related to that initiative. But we don't usually survey on the CIP as a whole because there's a feedback mechanism already in place, which is either people can volunteer to be part of the team that writes and reviews the continuous improvement plan, or they can volunteer to provide document any kind of feedback, written or in person, on the document itself when it's in draft form. So there's already two kind of feedback opportunities built in.
And how do they find out about those opportunities?
That would be through your school's normal communication channels, so whether it's their newsletter, their website, social media, however they normally communicate with families and community members would be how those opportunities would come out.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Sounds like we can move on. Thank you very much, Lisa. All right. Up next is the VSBA update.
Well, tomorrow is the VSBA meeting, and I've got a 4 o'clock for another meeting, so I already told them that I would be coming on via once I get home, you know, I'll switch on and get on the computer, so I'll be late. But they're actually, I don't know what you'd call it, but Zoe Saunders, the person that is now our interim Secretary of Education, will be part of the, I don't know if you call it interviewing her. It's a 30-minute, you know, I don't know how she's going to come out and tell us that she's right for this job, and she's going to tell the VSBA that, you know, that's what my interpretation is so far. So I don't know if they will be asking her questions, or if it's just I'm coming in to tell you what I can do for you. As you know, there's already money coming towards her in regards to a couple of people that she wants to hire. You know, so all the people that they couldn't hire before, now they have money to hire so. And I got a thing from the VSBA today. The Senate is on the floor now, and the Senate Finance Committee will be offering a floor amendment to H.A. 87, which is the yield bill that establishes an education finance study committee with a composition that is unfavorable toward public education, and with the charge of proposing cost containment legislation for the 2025 legislative. Additionally, the floor amendment changes the start date of the Commission of the Future of Public Education from July 2024 to July 2025. The rationale for delaying the start date of the commission is that the commission needs to know the cost containment measures before it works on possible changes to the delivery system. This approach is counter to VSB's advocacy of efforts which have focused on consideration of policy changes in the delivery system along with the consideration of cost containment measures. Please email all of your senators as soon as you can and ask them to vote no on the Senate Finance Committee's amendment, because it compartmentalizes decisions on education finance and the education delivery system when those decisions should be made in concert with each other. Here is your list of senators. So, you know, there's still a lot of discussion about the yield bill. And, you know, the long and short of it is our taxes are going up. We've heard 18%, 15%, 16%. But you know, they're supposedly done, what is it, May 10th? I think May 10th, so I don't know. Everything to me is still very much up in the air. Nobody's really talking with each other. They're talking at people, they're not talking with people. You know, they've had principals, superintendents, board members all come before committees to tell them about the problems in their communities, about not passing budgets, and they go back together, create a new thing, push it forward, and you know, so this just tells me that by this email that we are no closer to being a part of this, that it is very much going to be legislative driven, and it is not going to be a partnership with any school board members, with any principals or superintendents, or with the VSBA. That's my interpretation only.
I would not disagree with that, because I know I contacted my senators for voting on her recommendation, and they'd already all made their mind up that they were going to vote for it. So there was only 9 that voted. So a third of those who voted for her are from Rutland County.
Yeah.
They didn't listen to what our concerns or recommendations were.
Right. And you know, I don't know how many else, but I wrote also to my person, the senator, and I didn't even hear anything back from him. There was no communication whatsoever. It's like we're up here and you're down there.
We know best.
And we know best. And by the way, we're going to increase your taxes 15%. Sorry. So, you know, there is just, like I said, they're talking at people, they're not talking with people. So it is what it is, unfortunately. That's my update. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda.
I don't know, is Lisa on?
She was, yes.
Okay. I don't know if she wants to add anything.
I do not see her coming on.
Yeah, she's a tree.
Okay, just wanted to give her the opportunity.
Yep. And then resolutions. Resolutions are due, I believe, next month after our meeting. At the VSBA conference, they read through all the resolutions that go through the committee, and we kind of vote on them with our designated voter proxy, or proxy, I guess. So if you, I know that VSBA has sent a lot of information through your email about the resolutions, including a resolution toolkit. So next session, if you'd like to bring any that we can vote on as a board that we'd like to submit, feel free. We'll have a space on the agenda for that.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
But you said our meeting is after the due date?
Our meeting is before the due date.
Oh, it's before the due date.
Yeah. I think that, I don't remember for sure off the top of my head, but I feel like the due date is like June 10th or 15th.
Okay.
And our meeting is June 4th. So.
Awesome.
Yeah. So please, take a look at that and bring your ideas next time. All right. Next up, because we skipped contract recommendations and moved that after executive session, would be resignations. And I just have to get that up here. So we have five resignations this evening. Jessica Hauk, Proctor Elementary School special educator. Noah Riker, Proctor High School paraeducator. Ron Wood, Proctor Elementary School paraeducator. Lori Patterson, a evaluator with the central office, I guess, for the district. And Bill Basic, our Director of Student Supports, which is not listed in your packet, is effective end of June of 2024. So I will entertain a motion to accept the resignations.
So moved.
Thank you, Linda. All in favor?
Aye.
Open positions are in your packet. Does anyone have any questions on that? Moving on to Lewis.
I don't have anything to report tonight.
Does anyone have any questions on the monthly reports? Perfect. We'll move on to old business. The legislative discussion. Last meeting we had discussed inviting our senators and representatives in Montpelier to a meeting. So I guess I wanted just to have a discussion. Do we still want to do that? And if so, how do we want them to participate in the meeting?
Well, the letters that I referenced earlier, I did invite them also again, but have not heard a response.
I will say that Senator Collmore and Senator Williams did attend our budget meeting last night, which was very helpful and well appreciated. So last meeting we had discussed inviting our House reps and senators to a meeting. So the question is, do we still want to do that timing wise, and what do we want to ask them of? Do we want to have like a question and answer session? Do we want to just have a summary of what's happened this session in the House and Senate?
How about this? How about a summary and then followed by a question and answer kind of?
In the context of time, I would say they could provide a written summary of what happened. We don't need to dwell on what's already passed because it's already unfortunate. What we really want to know is what's the plan for the future and what their ideas, what the governor's ideas are, and what the commissioner's ideas are. So I think we should focus on coming rather than what's already passed.
Okay.
Just my view. We could always get a written summary of it.
Yep.
My most recent personal experience, I don't think we're going to gain any value from inviting them here outside of them placing blame on what's going on with no real value to what's happening in the future. What I'd like to hear from them in email summaries, who is at the table making decisions. I don't need to hear from people who said, oh, I had nothing to do with it, I voted no. It doesn't help me. And how we can get our delegates and our representation up there. We're going to have to go meet them there. They're not coming to us. But we just heard it last night. It was a 30-minute legislative update of them talking about themselves and what's wrong with Montpelier, offering zero help as far as what we're facing. So I appreciate their support, but I don't want to waste our time, their time, hearing about all the problems versus what are we going to do and who can we talk to?
Keeping taxes low isn't the answer. It's like, everyone wants that. Everyone wants low taxes, but the question is, like, how do we build the tax base? Like, it's outside of the realm of education, in my opinion, and I'll continue with that. Like, we need to broaden the base of where we're pulling taxes from, and we're not making that happen with the population that we have here and the opportunities for industry or other businesses and things like that. So
the legislative agendas, promoting that.
We all have to be swimming in the same direction, in my opinion. So how do we get that conversation going? So, and if they want to offer that, then great. But just saying that they're fighting to keep our taxes down is not really getting us anywhere, in my opinion.
It would be good to know where they see the education system in 5 years or 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a handful of people pulling the strings about where this is going, and I don't think, unfortunately, our local representation has any control over that as far as the demographics.
How did they personally see?
But
perspective. What do they want from? What do they want from us?
Yeah. I would like to hear that, but my impression is that they're going to tell us.
It's an election year.
They're going to tell us what we're going to do, not encourage us to contribute to the conversation.
If they want to tell us what to do, I'd like to hear what they want us to do.
So
do we invite them? Do we give them
But definitely a Q&A, yes.
Well, I think Colin's right. We don't need to hear about who's to blame. We need to hear about what possible solutions.
Moving forward, exactly.
or Kurt just said I didn't mean to cut you off.
Tim's point, also is, what Montpelier seems to not understand is that there's a finite bucket. But when you increase the people who are contributing to the bucket, then there's things that you can do. But when that bucket keeps getting reduced, then you have to make some serious decisions. And they may make those decisions, but it may not be the same outcomes that the population wants.
So it sounds like maybe having them here as like a little back and forth over how can we solve this problem and hear their side and let them hear ours. Is that kind of what I'm hearing?
I mean, I'd be interested to hear like realistic solutions that any one of them are bringing to the table outside of everyone saying we can't afford it. Well, that means nothing. What are you doing to control costs? What are possible outcomes for the future? And or any of our people sitting at the table with those. We had a lot of mandates come down that are unfunded. We have a lot of talk about equity, which is education based, which is great, but no one's talking fiscally. It's all about what we want and how do we equitize what we have. And the bucket keeps getting bigger, and it's like who keeps paying for it versus how are we going to pay for it and who is going to pay for it, and can we have solutions? What can we do as a supervisory union, as a county? What can we do to contribute controlling the costs? And also have a real conversation with they need to be having this with their constituents, that the cost of education is not going down in Vermont, and it never will. We're second or third highest property tax for education, but we also have the second or third highest scores. And I don't see Montpelier or our legislator deciding in the next couple of years that we're going to all of a sudden want to be like Alabama, and we're not going to spend money on education. So what are we going to do to raise the money? Or is it going to continue to be on the burdens of the taxpayers? Or are we going to have, they're coming up with some ideas of surcharging short-term rentals, but you know, it's going to keep escalating.
I'd like to know where the, also ask them where the money for the, you know, we've got different, yeah, gambling. Where is the gambling money going?
Exactly.
I'd like them to answer that. Is some of it going into education?
Where's my Powerball money?
Online.
Yeah.
Oh. Lisa? Only saw one. Can you hold on, Lisa? Let us switch you to the other microphone or speaker.
And Mary Beth is from Mill Spring. She's filling in for
Meredith. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, try now, Lisa.
So I would like our two senators that serve on education to explain what they see the vision for the future of education is, since they voted affirmative for the new Secretary of Education. So there has to be something similar that they heard from her that they see in moving forward, and I would like to know what that is. I'd also like to know what the data was that they used to mandate free lunches at $30 million for the state, and how they're using data to make decisions. We're using data to make decisions. What data are they using to make decisions? And as someone said earlier, they've suddenly found money to hire these two other people in the AOE. Where did that money come from? Thank you.
So is this a meeting that we want to have at an SU meeting, or do we want to have like a town hall or something like that?
Say that again?
Do we want to have this type of question and answer and information session at an SU meeting, or do we want to create a separate town hall where we invite them, where it's all education focused?
I think with here.
I think here under our direction, and it should be public. They should stand before the public and make their
During one of our regularly scheduled meetings?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think opening it to a bigger venue also allows for things to go off the rails relatively quickly.
Keep them focused.
Hmm?
They may be reluctant to do.
Well, we'll see.
So timing wise,
they get done in a few days, so they've got some time.
So reach out for a next meeting, or do we want to wait until August or September? Or just see who can come to either date? Lisa? Sorry, hold on 1 second. I apologize.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Yes, we can.
Yes, we can.
Okay, so I'd like to invite them to the June meeting. We have invited them before multiple times. Mike can probably speak to that. And not only did they not come, they did not even say they weren't coming. I think they owe us the due diligence of showing up at an SU meeting. You know, they showed up at other budget meetings for abutting school districts, and we have two senators that serve on education that come from two communities within Quarry Valley. Respectfully, I think they should show up at one of our meetings.
So I just want to make sure I heard you correctly, Lisa. You said you would prefer that they be asked for next meeting in June. Yes.
When's our next meeting?
June 4th.
Lisa, Tina just wanted to confirm that you would like to invite them for the June meeting. That's what you proposed?
Yes.
Thank you. Is everyone okay with that?
Yeah, perfectly.
All right. We will work on that. I cannot promise, but we will try. We will try.
Push it closer to the election and invite more people.
You can always do that.
Do that and invite more people.
Well, if they don't come in June, we'll try again for August.
I think that's important. It is an election year, and everything I've heard is just blame, 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 and all over the state. Finally, there's a couple good articles. Like they're all letting us down, not just ours. Like we need to put them to task. A whole bunch of fronts.
The GRCSU board retreat. I just wanted to confirm, July 2nd it will be, and I think that we had kind of left it up. We hadn't finally decided if we were going to have it here, but I think that's what we were leaning towards, or if we were going to have it at another establishment.
I don't mind having it here.
Yeah.
Just keep it easy with all the...
It's much easier.
In person is what we prefer for the retreat if possible, but we will have a hybrid option if we can't.
What's the most expensive restaurant around?
It's closed.
All right.
I think this has plenty of room for a retreat. I think this would be ideal, in my opinion.
Okay.
We could have it.
Has everything we need.
Where we met. What was it? We could go over at West Rutland High School.
In the library?
Yeah, I mean it's just bigger.
Yeah, but I think
we have the technology here. We have the kitchen here. We have restrooms here.
We got everything.
Air conditioning.
Yeah.
They have air conditioning there now.
This will be my
Just last
first.
year.
No, this is just the
Just
SU
for
board
the
retreat.
SU board.
Yeah, and
I think this is a good space.
yeah.
I'm still figuring out our configuration.
So we'll do it at the SU. We'll work on a menu and get out options if there are going to be options. If you have any dietary needs, like if you're gluten-free or vegetarian, please just email me soon. And then facilitator selection. I reached out to 2 potential facilitators, Kathleen Latondra and Debbie Stingheiser. Catherine? Kathleen, that's right. Kathy. Okay, Kathy Latondra. So they both had kind of different ways of going about facilitation. Debbie Stingheiser lives in Chittenden. She is actually the board chair of the Barstow School District, and she also, I think, works through the VSBA. So she's pretty close. Her fee was $150 an hour plus mileage. I think that we pay her for mileage time as well. But that's not very far, so that's good. And the way she does these type of meetings is more towards governance. I don't know if all of you at your local boards have done these governance standards self-evaluation, but her idea was to do this with the board and discuss it and come up with goals based on this. So that was kind of her thing. Kathy Latondra, her costs are between $1,200 and $1,800. She kind of went more along the lines of what I think I heard at our session, which was trying to develop board goals based on the strategic plan and also to increase unity amongst all the local districts within the SU. So she would have some sit-down time with Eric and I to kind of come up with a plan beforehand, and then would be present to facilitate. And she uses sticky notes, and I don't know if you've ever been at workshops where you kind of, that way everyone has a voice. There's a lot of movement, and so she may cost a little bit more, but it might be a little bit more on what we had in mind. So those are the 2 options. I'll be happy to answer questions or hear discussion.
There should be a third option,
which is none.
Lisa raised her hand.
Lisa, can you just give us a second and we'll let you know when.
Is there a chat box?
That's so awful. I don't know why this keeps happening. Try now, Lisa.
So the 12 to $1,800 I think is a ridiculous price, and we've had Kathy, I can't tell you how many times at the ESHN level. I want to say at least 8 to 10 times, and I would not go with her. That would be a no vote for me. Thank you.
I didn't hear.
Which one?
Kathy.
So she
Kathy.
said that Kathy has been with the basically on some board that Lisa's been a part of 8 or 10 times, I think she said, and she voted no. She does not want to work with her again.
Is that the first option or the second?
That was the second option. She also said it costs way too much money for her. What?
Okay.
So those are her
I
two.
like the first one because of we're going to have to deal with the things that are coming up in the board to evaluate ourselves. So that seems like a logical thing to do, but I'm trying to be positive about it, and it came from the Senate, and I'm not real happy with them right now, so maybe I don't know.
I think as far as Debbie Singheiser goes, with her involvement in the VSBA, as far as the governance piece to it, I think that might be helpful. But I'm going to say that.
Can you mute her?
She's trying to mute herself.
Okay. Okay, perfect. Got it.
I'm going to say that Wellsprings has had retreats facilitated with Kathy, and I would say that just to kind of reiterate what you said, I think that type of facilitation would work in line with what we're trying to achieve as board goals, and setting that specifically. We can customize it. I don't know if Debbie can offer that as well, but if her facilitation is just going to be strictly around board governance, I'm not sure how that's going to help us get to the goal part of the retreat.
Well, I think when you do the self-evaluation and you see where your strengths and weaknesses are, you can build your goals off of your weaknesses.
Mm-hmm.
So I do think that you can develop goals. I think, so Barstow's budget went down as well a second time last week. So she's been very busy too. So I think that we haven't had a full, conversation like we had with Kathy.
Gotcha.
It's been more just, this is what I usually do. She very well may be able to do that, plus tie it into the strategic plan. Are there any other comments?
The other thing we could have a discussion about is finances, money. I mean, how are we as a board going to work, Colin's point of everything's going up. How do we deal with this as a board when everything continues to go up? What do we think we can do as a board to help, to help us, get our vote. Quarry Valley was lucky we got it. Wellspring, Rutland Town. How do we help? Can we help each other in terms of the financial piece of being an SU board? Maybe we need to start talking about finances. Maybe that's a discussion to have. Maybe that's the discussion to have. Where do we see each other in 5 years with everything going up? Can we maintain this? Are there ways that we can work to to maintain some kind of an equilibrium with everything going up? anything that we wanted, I don't know, I'm throwing it out. I hear what you're saying, it's going up, and we, you know, it's impossible to look at that, look at your constituents who, you know, who are suffering from a 15% increase. They can't afford that. And is there any way as a board, I mean, is the legislature the only way, I mean, can we do something as a board? Is there anything we can do as a board? Or are we stuck because we have to deal with all this extraneous things that are going on that we have no control over? I don't know.
You should share your presentation from last night when I just keep hearing you say that everyone's taxes are going up 15%, but that is not quite true. And Colin showed a very well put together presentation with I think the calculator can be found right on the Vermont website, right? Yep. Where you put it in and you see what rebate you might get back based on income sensitivity, and based on some metrics, people were paying the exact same amount of taxes as they did last year,
or
even though the tax rate was going up. So I think there's an education piece that we can share with our communities that will help alleviate some of this stress, because it's easily, it's a stress mechanism, and if you want to spread the word that the sky is falling, then the sky is going to be falling. So I think we can do a lot in terms of educating our communities on how impactful education funding is to them directly, and how valuable it is not only to the students but also to property values and other things. So,
well, then maybe you could facilitate it for the group.
Well, I was going to say before you didn't, it was a great idea. I think maybe we do some budget workshopping. That's the way we can really help each other. We're going to have this battle next year. And what keeps me up at night and what's keeping me working 3 hours, 4 hours in the night isn't thinking that we're not doing a good job, because we are. The instruction is fantastic. And the governance is fantastic. It's like we're going to have these budget battles again and again and again. And if we can spend some time together about how we're messaging to our community, getting the education pieces together to show them what they're going to, and also, you know, what are the questions we're all hearing? It's, oh, admin's too high. Like, we got to fine tune the discussion we're having to the members, so you can stand up there firmly instead of, you know, saying, okay, appeasing to the nose, like how much more can we chop, to stand up there in front of them saying, this is the budget we need, and we have a great product, and we can all come out of a budget workshop to say, okay, we've done the work. Here's what we have control over, and here's where you're willing to bend, versus just the people, no, 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 and it's like, okay, now we're going to cut 3,000 of this, and having that messaging to show your constituents to use their property tax bills to say, hey, this isn't quite affecting you. Now, some of this is temporary Band-Aids, to also explain to them, like, they're patching shit together, pardon my expression, in Montpelier, with these bills that are overlaid with, okay, we just figured out the impact, we're going to come up with a 17-cent discount for this year, but 5 years from now that's gone, and this property tax yield rebate we're going to build back in 14% because it's costing you 14%. So they're patching a lot of Band-Aids, and we need to have all those tools in our tool case, so when you're talking to your public, so we can be well ahead of it going into town meeting day. And I just have a feeling, you know, this is just the beginning of a 5-year cycle of us all coming back here next March. Some of us will pass, some of us won't. And it's affecting all of our budgets and the SU budget. And we got to have a united front of, you know, just having these folks in here tonight, hopefully, and to be frank, there's not a lot of public watching us. But to see that impact and to see that, and like, that's where your administrative costs are going. This is the programming we're doing. It's not just paying for people to do nothing sitting there. And we need to have that packaged up so we can all have that same message coming out of this SU. This is where your dollars are being spent. Here's your impact. So I think it's a great idea.
And we could invite Lewis, who could explain the things that, you know, sometimes.
My question is this: is I don't disagree with the premise of working on budgets. and looking at the encompassment of what we have now and what we may look in the future. My question really is that what a retreat is for? If that's what a retreat's for, if that's what we're going to define the retreat for, then that's fine. But is that what the retreat is really for? If we're going to do that, then let's not call it a retreat. Let's call it a workshop. You know, let's be honest about what we're doing as far as what goes. Usually, a retreat is a time for self-evaluation, and this would not be in the self-evaluation. I'm not disagreeing that we shouldn't have that conversation. I'd love to have that conversation. But
I would love to have a budget workshap as well, but
right.
I don't think it's the same thing as a retreat. I would agree with you.
Couldn't we have like set a different date for that?
Well, I think the budget
a conversation.
The budget part, I think, needs to be public. I think the budget part needs to be public.
Yeah.
Versus the workshop where we're maybe learning something, or where we're maybe working on goals or something. They're different things. So I think we just need to categorize what is our goal, to have a workshop, to have a retreat, or whatever, just as long as we define what that is. As I said, generally a retreat is a self-evaluation thing. How are we doing? What are we concerned about as a governance board, and what do we think we should work on in the future? Generally, that's what a retreat's about.
Thank you, Mike. I agree with you. And Chris is not here tonight, and I feel like he would be very helpful in this conversation of when the best timing is with Lewis. Thank you. To have that conversation about when to schedule this budget workshop. I agree. I think it's something that we should discuss further. But let's save that for another night. We'll put that, we're not going to forget about it, okay? But let's talk about this board retreat right now.
I do want to caution only because we're in the thick of a lot of meetings that time is finite. So, as we say, this is extremely important, and let's just schedule another. Like, eventually, people like myself and other contributing people to the community who have families and professions will finally say, okay, well, here you go. People that are, retired or whatever, take over, and you'll get less insight from us as taxpayers. That I only want to say that because.
Not to beat this to death, but are we talking about a budget workshop in the vein of a presentation to the public to provide education about how we put the budget together, what funds we have control over, which ones we don't have control over? Is that what you were alluding to?
There's a multi-prong, like our own skill set on building budgets as well as how we're presenting that to the public.
Because I don't think you want to do that and work on the budget in the same meeting.
Yeah. No, but it's also the harsh reality of, like, if we're faced with 10% cuts, how do we start budgeting? You never walk in the door before you fail a budget to saying, hey, let's just slash 15% until you're faced with a bunch of voters that say, we're not doing this. And now where are we pulling levers? And each person's coming up with their here's our cut 1, 2, 3 list, but we go around this room, each one of you is going to have a different list. And that's what we're running into last night, where people say, well, I don't agree with any of this, even though it's the same board. Like, how do we prepare ourselves for this? And this is just me personally talking, and again, we're in the throngs of this. When it comes to having a retreat to talk about what we do well or set goals versus how do we prepare for the next 5 years of budget battles, that's way more important to me. How do I set a goal? I could have a great goal for next year. What if our budget's cut 12%? My goals are way different now. And what are we failing at right now as a board? We're failing budgets, and we're failing passing to our own town. I don't think we're failing our children with the instruction that's coming out, with the reports that we're getting. But we're failing votes. And that's not saying it's our fault, but that's what we need to be prepared for in the coming year. And helping each other pass that. And are we, instead of turning, even this is an SU, but if you wanted to talk to me about some of the problems in Vermont, my town's not overspending, other towns are. I don't want to turn on each other. How do we become a cohesive unit coming out of here and hopefully lead a conversation? And hopefully that brings us together too. How can we help each other? Right now we work on an SU budget together, but we don't work on our town budgets together.
Right.
And I want to make sure that what is important to us is important to you, and help you guys sculpt those messages, because they're all our kids. And I may be saying that just, it's not top of my mind, because we've been in a 3-month battle.
You're absolutely right. But again, you're talking about votes. It's the votes that we're missing. And some people, I think, are voting against the local budgets because they don't really understand where the money comes from, what we have control over, what we don't have control over. There was more than one letter to the editor right before town meeting day about why aren't local boards looking at less expensive health care plans? We don't control that, and we haven't for a while. And a lot of people out there that vote don't know that.
After we failed this with the second time, we had a constituent come and ask, why don't we just cut pre-K? What?
And it would be good to get feedback like that. What is important to the community and what's not. But, yeah, you'll get very different answers from parents and the general public that don't have anyone in the school. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't try our best to educate everybody as much as possible. And if the legislature's pointing the finger at us, we should also be pointing out, you're doing a great job negotiating health care up there, aren't you?
They're communicating better than we are with the voters.
So just to kind of bring this back to the retreat, that, educating the public more and getting more unified on, our budget tactics could be a goal. All right, so these are the type of conversations that we can have at the retreat. I don't think it should be a retreat. It should not be a workshop in place of a retreat. I think we may need both. And Mary Beth, you had your hand up?
Yeah, hang on one second, Mary Beth. Let me just switch this system over to you. Okay, Mary Beth, you should be fine for us to hear now. Yep, go ahead.
Beth, go ahead.
She's on mute.
You're on mute, Mary Beth. We can't hear you.
That's it, Louis.
Takes an account.
Hold on.
But Mary Beth is still muted.
Yeah, she's muted.
Yeah. Can you ask her to unmute?
Unmuted now, isn't she?
Okay. So I guess I want to get a consensus over, while we're waiting for her to speak. Oh, there's
Mary Beth, can you try again?
Still on.
Yeah, sorry. I think I was signed in under my
Thanks, Liz.
my other email address. I just wanted to say quickly that I did bring up in past meetings about having like a school budget language 101 that I've seen other school budgets in the surrounding areas in New York and Vermont have that kind of language that's always included in either budget talks or when we're coming to the public with those votes. So that's just something that I wanted to throw out there that other school boards have, and it's actually really helpful for me and other people that I've shared it with.
Thank you.
There was one added to the budget documents earlier this year. I'm not sure if it's still there.
So maybe we needed to do a better job of getting it out, but that's more of a local board.
No, it was added to the
Right.
SU website.
The SU. So what I mean is we need to do a better job
Yeah.
of letting the public know it's there, I guess, somehow. All right, back to the retreat. Do we want a facilitator or do we not? And which facilitator if we want a facilitator? So I will entertain a motion.
I'll make a motion for no facilitator.
Okay.
Sorry, what was the motion?
I'll
No
make a motion for no
facilitators.
facilitator.
Discussion.
I think we already decided that we were going to have a facilitator at our last meeting. Or our
We were
previous
going to
meeting.
explore. We were going to
I think
explore
we
the
talked
option.
about it, but I don't think we decided for it for sure.
Well, in my experience, it's better to have someone who is not a member of the group.
Yep. I think we should have a facilitator. I will.
Any more discussion?
I think we should have a facilitator, absolutely.
Okay.
The SU board does not have a budget line for facilitator, so we would have to find, it'd have to come out of local boards.
What's that?
The SU board does not have a line for a facilitator. It would have to come out of local boards.
Yeah, it would just be assessed, right?
It would be assessed
We
according
could
to
create
it.
a new line and overspend it, yes. But there's not a current budget line for it.
But would it be, when you take it out of the budget, it would be assessed at our percentage that we normally, is that how it works?
I mean, there's two ways of going about it. We could just overspend the SU budget, that line, or we can create a bill back and just bill back the districts based on some metric that you decide.
There was a facilitator last year.
There was not. Lisa?
So if you hire a facilitator, why would it be assessed based on SU assessment? Why should Corey Valley pay more than anyone else? You're all bringing the same amount of people to the SU retreat except Ira.
Doesn't mean that we couldn't have somebody lead the discussion. I mean, Chris could do that, or, you know, if you have somebody manage that, it just means we wouldn't have a paid facilitator. Call the roll. Move on.
All right, I'll call a vote. All in favor?
What's the motion again? Motion is not to have a facilitator.
The motion is not to have a facilitator. All in favor?
Aye.
That's 3. All against?
Nay, I guess. Is that
Okay, so 5 nay means that we would like a facilitator.
No, it just means you don't want to go without one.
We don't want to go without one.
Doesn't mean you'll have one. It just means you don't want to go with one, without one.
Okay. Well, I feel like
I'll make a motion that we go with option A.
Yeah.
A, Deb Singheiser. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
So that's 6. All right. And
Opposed.
all opposed? 2. Okay. All right, so that was 6 yay, 2 opposed, 2 nay. And Jeff, I didn't get your vote, I'm sorry.
You have to have a roll call.
I would vote for a facilitator.
So it was 7 yay. All right, thank you. So I will contact her. Is there anything, it sounds to me that we don't want to just do the governance protocols, but that could be part of it. Is that consensus?
Yeah.
Okay. So in my local board, I had all of our board members fill out the self-assessment on their own time and then bring it already completed. So it helps with, make the discussion go a little faster. So before the retreat, I will send that out to you if you could complete it. It's just a front and back. It doesn't take very long, but if you could think about it, it would help with the discussion. Okay, great. Thank you. Next, snow days and last day of school. Lisa, do you want to?
I think Chris and Lewis had a conversation about this, and they thought that there might be some implications related to contracts that might be better discussed in executive session about this. And I apologize, I wasn't aware of that conversation until after this meeting started this evening. But I think their recommendation was to move that discussion there.
Move that discussion
to executive session because there could be contract implications.
Okay. Sounds good.
Am I saying that right, Lewis?
Yes.
All right, so we'll move that down there. Next, the vision and mission. So we met last week as a vision and mission committee with our community stakeholders, which were mostly board members, but we did have one or two from the community that came up. And we came up with both a short and a long statement. And in your packet online or in front of you, it has what we came up with. So our short statement is engaged, empowered, and prepared for tomorrow. And our longer statement is our mission is to engage and empower students to achieve academic and personal success, preparing them to be responsible citizens who embrace a love for learning. So I would ask for a motion to accept that as our new vision and mission statement for the GRCSU.
So moved.
Thank you, Linda. Any discussion? Somebody raising their hand, but it's not.
Was it?
No.
I'm not sure that, because we've just announced that it gives everybody a chance to think about it. Some people have had a chance to think about it, other people have not, and I'm not sure it's fair to call a vote for that without a little time to absorb and make comment on it. It's just my opinion.
Is there urgency to this or no? As far as like,
I don't think so.
Getting print out or?
Nothing a month or two is going to make a difference.
I mean, I'd almost rather come back to it next month, and then if we agree on this, then we have this as some component to our retreat the following month. Because if we're going to be working together, it should be focused, at least in part, on the mission that is at hand, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we can bring it to our individual boards and then come back to it.
I don't know.
I mean, you can do whatever you want, right?
Yeah.
If we're,
I mean, we're here as representatives of our board.
I think given, the board members and each individual board an opportunity to look at it would be a good thing. We want people to buy into stuff. I think it's important.
Eric?
I think that when we had this discussion, was it back in last year, January, when we started working on this, that the board had tasked this committee to do the work and bring back a recommendation, and this is the recommendation. And so there's been a lot of input and process. There's been a lot of community involvement, stakeholder involvement with this whole process. We've had quite a few meetings, and I think that this is what is being presented to the GRCSU board tonight.
And I feel also like this could be like a first reading, just like we do with policies. And I'm comfortable with sharing it with the board. I'm not comfortable with them coming back with changes specifically, but more, are they happy with it or not? And if they're not, then we can take that back too, and then work on it again.
Mm-hmm. Or come to vote.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or come to vote.
I mean, if someone wasn't, just an emphatic no to this mission and vision, then maybe we have to dig deeper. But if it's just like, I don't love it, but they also didn't participate in the committee process, then it's kind of like you got a chance to vote, right? And if you didn't vote and you didn't get the result that you were looking for, then
this took a long. This
you know what I mean?
A process.
Well, I mean, tough. Or we could be talking about this next year.
Yeah.
Honestly. So.
Lisa?
I mean, I appreciate the work that was put into it.
I would also just holding off on this. I don't think it should be sent out per administrators to teachers in the buildings, just as a general poll back to each administrator, this is something that you want teachers to be embracing, and this is also something that's going to have a cost to us. We're going to change and print this up, so we want it to be something that everyone's embracing.
And if they're not, then we need to go back to the drawing board, I think. So, but I hope that they would come back with positive feelings about it, because we did spend a lot of time on it.
I think they're great. I just think that it's important to get everybody on the same page so you don't hear afterwards.
We want everyone to be happy and proud of it, so.
So we're trying to build unity, so.
So, Linda, would you be okay amending your amendment?
I would be happy to amend my amendment.
To wait till next time?
To wait till the June meeting.
Or you could just withdraw it.
Or just withdraw.
I would be happy to withdraw it.
I just say or. It was an or.
I would be happy to withdraw.
That might be the easier way to do it.
So,
thank you.
This is a point of interest. This could be something to be talked about at a retreat in the governance section to begin with, to Eric's point. If we're tasking off committee work, that's where majority stuff gets worked. The recommendation comes forward, we act upon it. If we're going to try to act as a committee of the whole and bring every little piece back, that kind of breaks down the governance piece of why we're here and why we do the committee work. And I get that we need unity on everything, but like to function highly as a board, that's why you create the systems in place. So we can talk more about that at the. Thank you.
Alrighty, so I will bring this back up next month. And if you care to share it with your boards and whatnot, I look forward to hearing from you.
I would love for it to be shared if we all agree that this is a positive statement here, which I felt like everyone had a good response. I think it should be shared locally and in that same notion, right? Mm-hmm. Like, you know, the SU committee did great work on this. You know, I think it's what we were looking to create. Like, we would love your buy-in, right? Versus.
What do you think?
Yeah. Right. What do you think?
That's what I'm saying. I think
everyone's got plenty of opinions.
I was at the meeting, so I think it's awesome.
Yeah. So if you ask for their buy-in, I think it might be well received.
Okay. Next up, superintendent evaluation process. This has been ongoing. We have not come up with a formal process of what we want to do every single year. So I know Lisa reminded us last time that we had said that we would bring this back up to discuss how we want to go about this around this time. So once a year we are responsible for evaluating the superintendent, and we need to figure out how to do it.
Do we have any like procedure in place?
So we had a rubric that we used last year that Lisa found. So we could use that again.
I would like to see it based on the strategic plan and the goals.
I would like the superintendent to know what he's being evaluated on. He needs to know what yardstick he needs to measure to, rather than it coming up.
Measurable goals.
Well, no, he needs to know what he's going to be evaluated on.
What the goals are.
I mean, he should have been.
I didn't understand. Sorry.
Could be, yes, but because he doesn't, we can't evaluate him on something solely blind. He needs to know that, just for example, I'm supposed to be at 12 meetings. You know, that's easy. Okay, was he at 12 meetings? Yes. Okay. Whatever, whatever it is, he needs to know what it is so that he can work on it, so that he can be fairly evaluated.
That should be at the beginning of the process, not at the end.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Lisa?
Because it's not measurable now.
Right, so we've never set any goals for Chris, so that would be the first step rather than the evaluation tool, in my opinion.
I didn't hear that.
Could you repeat that, Lisa? It was just a little hard to hear.
there are no goals when you evaluate it. So the goals should be set prior to creating an evaluation tool.
Agreed. So basically, we're all on the same page that Chris needs to know what goals we want him to achieve and how to achieve them.
When?
And when.
The time frame, I mean, we're kind of,
right at the end of the
everything rotates because we're shifting our board positions in March or April, but we're on fiscal years of July. I mean, it needs to have, and we're setting goals then at a retreat. So we have no frame of reference on like what, annually, yes, but around what clock? And, is he going off of goals set 2 cycles ago, or
July 1st,
or goals that he doesn't know yet, or him or her in the future? I mean, it should be something sort of repetitive process and superintendent's tasked with goals. He's going to work, him or her is going to work towards those. That's how we should be evaluating it. But in the sense of where we are today, if we need to do this short term, a rubric's a good way to do that as an evaluation. But potentially we should shift this to after we have our goal session.
Or we could use the strategic plan as a basis for setting those goals.
But identifiable goals by us, I mean, strategic plan's great, but they're self-reporting on it too. So it's, how'd you do this year? I did great. We got to have some measurable, we set the goals, but we have to have a rubric ourselves. So are we measuring it, or is someone else measuring it? And if I'm replaced, can the next board member step on and take the prescription we laid out and do an evaluation on a goal we set?
And it goes back to governance a little bit. Are we allowing him to be able to do what he needs to do and stay out of his way? Because really, he's our only employee, and so everything that he does is reportable to us, but not everything that we're concerned about is necessarily for us to know, if you will. So it's a little complicated, but it needs to be. There needs to be one in place, and it needs to be fair, and it needs to have a time frame on it so that he or she knows when they're expected to be done with the goals, so that they can work towards those goals. And then we as a board need to be respectful and responsible as to those things that we expect from that process.
So if you're improving academic achievement and student growth at all grade levels in the areas of literacy and math, are you setting it as you want a 10% improvement, or do you want 6 out of 10 kids, or you got to set a goal, right, that he can prove? That's
measurable, right?
That is
he can
measurable.
prove, and it's kind of like in manufacturing, you're basing what your goals are is increasing, how many widgets you make that year, and keeping cost reductions, that sort of thing. So he does. We really do need to set a standard for him and goals for him, like a year in advance, really, to be able to measure his results.
But we also, if you use that educational thought, there's a lot of variables in there that he has absolutely no control over. Okay, so we've got to be mindful that the things that we're asking him to do are things that he has a substantial control over. Okay, we can't control how many kids progress in a particular area because he doesn't directly impact that. He directs the people who impact that. So that might be something to look at. But
so would like a student to teacher ratio kind of scenario, would that be something that could be measured, or no?
I don't know how it would be fair for somebody to be evaluated on that. I think, what does Chris do? Chris manages, oversees, directs, and that's what his job is. So in my view, those are the kinds of things we need to look at. How is he doing those kinds of things?
How is he communicating with the boards, with families?
So would operating, efficiently be part of that?
based on whose standard of efficiency. Yeah, that'd be a tough one.
So do you say something like that out of a board, I'm going to just throw this out, and you can take it apart, because it's probably wrong. But say, out of all board members, he would achieve a 3 in communication with board members. Is that what we're saying? No?
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know.
We don't have anything right now.
Involved in asking him and have him as part, since we're floundering, that it might be a good idea to have a committee sit with, and maybe there are other, maybe we go and talk with other boards who have an evaluation tool that is with the strategic plan. Maybe that's what we end up doing, asking for some more information, because it doesn't seem like we know. I mean, Mike's got it in terms of this is what he does. We should be evaluating him on what he does. We just don't know how to write that correctly. So maybe we should be asking for some help on how to write up an evaluation for a superintendent.
There's a lot of templates out there.
Yeah.
Online. I just pulled up a couple.
Right, but even he said, when we asked him, he wanted to be evaluated according to the strategic plan. We take that into consideration, because he's asking, the 2 years we wrote this plan, I'd like to be evaluated based on this plan. We just don't know how to write it up based on the plan.
So here's one where these are the five qualities for a superintendent: communication, team building, operational flexibility, instructional knowledge, and problem solving. That's just from one search.
So Eric, you were going to say something?
Yeah, I was just going to say, obviously absent of any goals for the superintendent, the last time we used a rubric. And so maybe it would make sense to continue with something like that, but to customize it, maybe as Linda suggested, to have a group to come up with this process. And I'll add that the evaluation process is the supervisory union board's responsibility. I know in the past we've included local boards' input on that, and again, I think that's something that we should also make that clarification if we want to keep doing that, or just have the SU board involved. And I'm cautious to kick it to a committee and then have that come back to the SU board.
I agree with that, but I also don't agree that the SU board should have input on it, because they don't hire him. This is the board that hires him.
The what?
This is the board that hires him.
You're saying you don't think they should
Not
have
the
any
local
input.
board. The local boards don't hire him.
It's just that the local boards are, when you look at the
Understood.
governance, it says
Yes,
to do that.
but there again, they can't hire him. We're the only ones that can do that.
That's the tricky part about this setup specifically.
Yes.
And supervisory union is that if I'm using a local hat, I may have a completely different evaluation subset versus a different local that says he's doing a terrible job, and we're like, well, he's doing a great job, and we need to keep that in mind. Like, this board's hiring him to do the functions, and you may have personal local knowledge that says I don't think this is working at all, but it's because of that building flow. So we need to be very cautious.
Should be taken into account, right?
Right.
But it should be one dynamic of
Yeah.
the overall decision.
How is he or she, or he right now, operating the SU to our goals and needs?
So do we want to form a committee to try to come up with something? Or do we want to task the executive committee to come up with that, which has been done in the past?
I would task the executive committee, and I think we should table it to the retreat. This could be a good function. It's going to take you guys a little bit of time to, there's a lot of resources out there to kind of find home tune, and you guys are kind of running the ship for us, so I think that's a good idea, personally.
Is everyone okay with that?
Yeah.
As long as we get his input. I think it's important to get his input. you know, he may be able to add something to it that we hadn't thought about, and it might behoove us to learn something from him in regards to this. Not that we would do it, but I think having him be a part of it is important to get his input.
I'm not sure he'll weigh in on his own evaluation process.
Not the evaluation process, but if he made the comment that he wanted to be evaluated by the strategic plan, that he has some kind of an idea that is important in the evaluation process. So I'm just saying, I'm throwing it out. We don't have to do that.
He's part of the executive committee, so we can have that as part of the conversation.
Okay.
So.
I'm very cautious. This is a strict board function, especially when it comes down to litigation or getting rid of somebody, to stick to an evaluation model. If we don't have a good one and you're allowing someone to weigh in on that, then it becomes very murky water if evaluations turn sour and who did what.
He is the employee.
It should really be coming out of us of...
He's the employee.
Yeah. And that also ties into him coming back and negotiating his performance.
But I think asking
getting more money. It's got to be ours.
But, you know,
He can
what
evaluate
was in...
You can ask him to evaluate himself, but
Yeah.
to have him or her design the...
Yeah.
No, not design.
Opens up the door.
Not design. No.
And we should hope if you're going to do the work that we could build something that works into perpetuity, that every board doesn't have to come and flip how they're going to evaluate.
Create exposures if he set his own evaluation.
Correct.
Which has the value of the strategic plan because it's a long term, and so it doesn't matter who's doing it, it's are they adhering to that plan? So that gives you that foundation that you're kind of looking for.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, so I will be in touch with the executive committee then to set that up. Next up, Wellness Center update and special education transportation. Bill?
Muted.
You're muted,
Bill.
Hit the button.
All right, it's been a long night. It looks like I'm right at the bottom of the list, and I'm ready to go.
Not quite.
So is there any updates for the Wellness Center? Are there any questions? I'll probably open it up. I hope it was very informative.
Are we saying we're going forward with it next year? Is that what
Yeah, I'm not sure. Yes, I would assume, looking at the financials, it would probably, there would be nowhere to place the children, and it would cost us probably in excess of $200,000 if we were to place them.
Mary Beth?
Hi, Bill. I was just wondering how many kids are can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay, great. Sorry, Bill. I'm just wondering how many kids are currently enrolled.
Currently enrolled, there are probably about 7 students right now. Did you get my report, Mary Beth?
No, unfortunately, I just hopped on a little bit late tonight.
Okay.
I was just wondering how many were currently enrolled. Do you expect on expanding that, or expanding that program for next year?
No, I would say since it was a pilot program, I think my original proposal, pretty clear, it takes about 5 years to build a program. We don't want to risk losing staff, but I would say probably run it again exactly how it was run this year, and we will continue to learn more about the program, but I think expanding it would be too fast of a move.
Okay, thanks.
Bill, can you tell us how many people you've run through it? How many students have run through it?
Yeah, I did. I'm sorry. I'll go through that. I'm sorry. I thought I gave a report, but let me go through that. So, yeah, so we have 9 students utilize the program this year. 4 of the students would not have been able to attend school this year. So without the Wellness Center, we'd have 4 students at home right now. 4 students exceeded expectations by spending a partial day at the Wellness Center. And 1 student came after hours for high school credit.
Thank you.
How has grading gone with the teachers, with students coming from schools and in there, is the special educator grading students? With
A special educator, we have a dual certified special educator teacher, and we are more focused on, we're depending on the student, we are trying to partner with a homeroom teacher in their sending school. So every student is still enrolled in the sending school in a classroom. But overwhelmingly, the IEP is driving the education of the students.
So is the student doing their math and language at the wellness center or at the school that's sending?
At the wellness center. And it's generally an alternative curriculum. It's not the same curriculum being used in the classroom.
So is the special educator then giving the grade? How would the teacher grade if they're getting their language and math at the school? How does the teacher or the classroom teacher sending know what to grade for the student?
That's all developed through the IEP team. The IEP team are coming up with distinct criteria for each student.
Yeah, I understand the IEP team and everything, but so it's in the IEP that says that the special educator is grading, or that the ascending teacher is grading.
The special educator is actually regular ed certified K6 too. So that is how we're able to have the children wellness center. So the teacher is K6 certified and special ed certified.
Okay, so she's grading that. Okay.
Correct. Yes.
Understanding it's a pilot, how many potential students do we have that could utilize this moving forward? Not that we're looking to expand today.
Probably 10 to 15.
Okay. Seems like it was a success year one. I mean,
yeah, it was a huge success, and we wouldn't. I think that what we're missing is, the VAC Sheldon Academy is not accepting students at the moment because they're full. Also, we'll talk about a little bit more that Lehigh High is shutting down. State is not allowing independent therapeutic schools to open up within the state anymore. So it's really, didn't really intend. It's a little different when we first presented this last year, but it has definitely fulfilled a large need in our district.
Bill, when you say 10 to 15, is that 10 to 15 students at a time or just throughout the year?
No, I would say if I kind of opened it up, I'm talking principal requests, teachers' requests, that I would say 10 to 15 current students if we have staffing and more room available to access it.
All right, so do we need I believe last year we only approved it for 1 year, so do we need a motion to approve this for next year?
Let's throw out the Lewis. I think the only thing they need is to approve the lease, actually. I mean, because it is a special ed program. It's not a standalone school. It's no different than Allergy Street campus in Rutland. But so it's a special ed program. The only difference is it exists outside of its school. So if the board didn't want to in the lease, we would just host it at the school. So the program's not going away. It's the idea of the lease, I think. Am I correct in that, Lewis?
I would agree with that. The costs are already in the budget, which has been approved by the board. So the board does have to approve the lease.
What is
they don't have to, but any lease has to be approved by the board.
$4,000 for the year.
is it up for renewal or not?
It was a 1 year lease. It's $2,000 a month.
I'll make a motion, we approve the lease renewal.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All right, transportation.
Yeah, this one's going to be a little trickier. I really struggled on how do I write a report on something I don't know. That's the hardest one. We have very distinct transportation needs right now. And again, the Lehigh closing. Are people familiar? Do people only talk a little bit more about Lehigh? When I say Lehigh is closing, sometimes the new people, do people only talk about that a little bit more?
Maybe just the unfamiliar with it.
I think we're all.
Okay.
Just the impact.
We have 9. Yeah, we have 9 students at Lehigh. Lehigh is closing July 1. We just found out about this about 3 or 4 weeks ago. So those children will either have to be outplaced to a equivalent model, or they'll have to be integrated back into our schools. Right now, there is no independent school that is accepting children because of capacity. So we are going to have to develop a program to integrate those children back into our schools. We're kicking around some ideas, but generally we're thinking of expanding our life skills program in Poultney and maybe expanding some programming at West Rutland. The biggest problem is transportation. You're not going to be developed, we're not going to have staff to develop each one of these programs individually at all our high schools and all our small elementary schools. So we're trying to target a couple schools, and we'll have to bring the children to those schools. So we're definitely going to need a van for next year. There's no way around it. Right now, we're paying an exorbitant amount for transportation. Fortunately, it's hitting the AOE reimbursement. But part of that AOE reimbursement is also the tuition. So say you're paying $85,000 tuition at Lehigh, you bring those children back into our buildings, we won't be paying, which is good, we won't be paying that $85,000, but we won't be reaching those high levels of thresholds, and we won't be able, it won't be prudent to use the expensive transportation we're using right now. So we're going to have to take a hard look at transportation next year. We will 100% need a new van for next year. I'd like to buy that van this year. We're running a surplus of special education and student services. We can use that. We do have a child we'd like to bring to the Wellness Center this year immediately. We can't do that because of transportation. So we would like to buy a van. In my report, I also wrote a little bit. It is tricky because I did say if I was a board that was voting on a van, then I'd rather, I mean, if I was part of your board, I'd like to really see some distinct information about how the vans are being used and you know, are they being used efficiently, and you know, that's tough for me to answer. I do know that we're kind of in between area where we either have to buy this van or we have to start investing in drivers and monitors. You can only have so many children on a bus before it becomes unsafe, and you have it on a van. Then you have to monitor just to make sure that that monitor is you know, supervising children so the driver can drive. So what we're doing right now is we're using our staff to drive and be monitored, which is working fine, but the problem with that is you don't have the capacity to move your vans around the SU. So we're kind of, the vans follow the staff, and that's where we're at right now. So I wish I could do a better job planning. I really struggled when I wrote in the report, but you know, the transportation evaluations and reviews are done generally by outside contractors who understand the business. I mean, it is a completely different business that certainly understands special education and quite a bit about transportation. But it is people who come in as consultants and give the SU a good idea of what they need to do.
Bill, would this take, would a van take the place of some of the higher cost transportations that we see on our warrants currently, or would those still continue?
That's a good point, and I'm glad you brought that up. Right now, those high costs, especially at this point, through the year, will be reimbursed. So we would not be supplementing in 2024 any of those routes. But next year, as I spoke, that we don't want to start from the beginning of the year spending $78,000 to transport one student from Poultney to Rutland, because, or actually this would be vice versa, from Rutland out to Poultney, because that would be, we wouldn't necessarily hit that reimbursement, and we would use our own drivers. So you either have to, they kind of go hand in hand. If you're tuitioning a student into a private or therapeutic setting, it's probably best to use contracted service transportation. If we're moving our children into our own programs around the district, it's better to use our own drivers and vans.
So I guess what I was asking, would this take the place of those so that we wouldn't have quite as many? It sounds like it would.
Next year, but yes, but it would take the place because we have Lehigh students that will be integrated back into, but we won't have that many. In fact, we could, I'm trying to do quick math in my head, we can only have maybe 3 or 4 students outplaced next year because of the lack of available response.
One thing to consider too is that, I mean, we contract with a lot of different companies just because you could really only transport limited number of students at one time because everybody's going to school or leaving school at the same time. So if you're transporting someone from here to there, that is the run that you're doing. You can't also bring somebody else from this place to this place because they need to be done at the same time. So that's why we have Betcha doing transportation, we have Ice House doing transportation, sometimes in some cases we have parents doing transportation, and then we're also transporting. So just buying one van doesn't replace all of our outsourcing of transportation. It could only outsource, it can only remove maybe one segment of it because all this transportation is being done at the same time.
What's the total cost of our transportation currently, annually?
So for the current year, I had provided a forecast to the board at the, I believe, the February board meeting, and at that time, I was estimating that our transportation cost would be approximately $284,000.
Bill, so are you creating another special education program for these students at Poultney High School?
Probably expanding the program and having it a little bit different how we're going to service the children. I don't really think we're creating it from scratch like we did with the Wellness Center, but where we have a more of a robust program, probably for our high schoolers at Poultney High School right now. And so we've actually already started moving students over there. So we're going to move more students over there. You know, not only are we having the problems with the therapeutic schools closing, but you know, we need to get very specialized people to work with these students. And so, say if we try to have free programs at our free high schools, we're not going to get the staff that we need to have each one of those programs to the level of service our students deserve. So that's just reality of the workforce shortage in Vermont. So again, we'll be trying to build a much more robust program in one of our high schools and moving students over there.
Okay, yeah, that was my next question. So if the students aren't going to Lehigh, wouldn't they just go back to their local district and go to that school? But you're saying that it has to do with the quality of instruction is why the transportation.
Exactly. I mean, we don't have. I mean, they wouldn't be going to Lehigh if we had that level of service. They wouldn't be going to Lehigh in the first place. So we're going to have to create the same level of service for Lehigh. We don't have the staff to create that in all 3 of our high schools.
So I would entertain a motion on the special education transportation at this time. And
Can we take a bit of time to think about it before we do it? We just kind of take
is there any harm in waiting till the June meeting because we're still in this fiscal year?
No, there'll be a child that won't be able to go to the Wellness Center for the remainder of the year.
Vans are also hard to come by, at least the ones that we've been purchasing. And there was 2 available when I brought this up. I believe it was 2 months ago, and I brought it to the executive committee, who said to wait and bring it to the board. So I did have to let those vans go. I'm not sure if they're still available at this point. Though that would be to make them be the same type of vans that we have. So delaying it potentially impacts students. It also could impact the availability, as well as if we don't do it by the end of the year, then we can't utilize that surplus.
It would be not handicap van, just a standard.
It would be a standard non-hand. We have one handicap van in the SU. That is an additional cost, I believe, approximately $25,000 to make it handicap accessible.
So roughly, approximately, what is the cost of the van?
38 to 45,000.
Yeah, the ones that I was looking at were about 41. So we put that range depending on what's available and what the options are.
I would also like to point out that looks like the legislature is going to extend the hotel program for the foreseeable future well into next winter. So if there was no use for the van, which I absolutely think there'll be a very large use, we also, we've been fortunate, I applied for a homeless Intervento transportation grant, was able to get $50,000. But we are paying, I mean, I know that one run we're cost sharing $35,000 on, other runs we're cost sharing $24,000 on. So if the van ever just ended up sitting there, again, I don't think it would, it could quickly go to our McKinnell-Vento obligations and we could save money. There is no reimbursement in McKinnell-Vento, so that's money we're actually just paying. So if the van was available, we could quickly switch to it next year and transport McKinnell-Vento homeless students back to their home school and accrue a large cost savings there.
What size is the van? Is it like the smaller vans that we currently have?
It's a Ford Transit Connect. It seats up to 7, most of them, but we can only have 5 students.
Because you have to. Okay.
Yeah. And this van would be just like the other vans in the SU. They'd be available to all students if needed.
Yeah. I do want to point out that we're talking about the level of students because I don't think that's a fair apples-to-apples comparison. It would be very difficult to have 5 of our students attending our out-of-district schools, a driver and a monitor in one van. That wouldn't be practical. We would have to split them out. Probably the most we put is 2, possibly 3 students in the van, but mostly we would look at 2 students in a van.
It sounds like our needs have gone up, and I see on the warrants all the money that we're spending too, and I think it makes sense. It's my 2 cents.
I'll move to approve the service van request.
Eric. So Eric's made a motion to approve the service van request. Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstained? Okay, it's unanimous. Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Well, no, thank you very much. I know these aren't easy decisions, especially I've been listening intently tonight about economic budgets and costs going up. This is just something that that we have legal obligations that we have to fulfill, and it's just part of making sure we provide good services to students. And very happy that we'll be able to move tomorrow on serving students. Thank you.
Thanks for your reports, Bill.
Yeah, thank you.
Hopefully you can find a van.
All right, next up, policies. We have 5 second reads, but I just wanted to ask a question. The last meeting, we also had 3 rescinded policies. Those also have to be warned as rescinded and approved again, correct?
Yeah.
So we'll make sure that those are on next months, because those were missed.
Yeah.
The 3 rescind.
I'm not sure if they were warned.
They were not warned.
They were not?
They were not warned, so
Okay.
I think we need to make sure they get warned.
Well, I'll move to adopt E10, E13, E16, F18, and G1.
Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Any more general public comments before we move to executive session? Our next meeting is June, Mary Beth?
Hey, sorry, I know I'm not general public anymore. I've been bumped up. But I just wanted to say quickly just about looping in our legislative body to our conversations. I've worked with Terry a little bit, Robin not so much, but I know that they don't have like a secretarial staff or staff of any kind. So whenever I had to bug them about an issue. It was just about persistence. So just calling, emailing. So I know that we've invited maybe these two gentlemen and then other gentlemen and ladies and the representative body to come to these meetings, but I just think that that's one thing I wanted to just get across is that we, calling, emailing, and texting, they don't have the support staff behind them, so I just think that that's really important to remember, not to give them a pass, but if we really want them involved, I think we just have to bug them more, honestly.
I'm sorry.
Yeah. Well, they do sit on legislative bodies for what we're asking them to come to talk about, so it's not completely outside the scope of what they were voted to do.
Right, and I've worked with Trey a little bit in the past because he is on the Senate Committee for Education. But I'm just saying, if we're not getting the outcome that we wish to get, and we're not getting the involvement that we wish to get, I just think that, as a school board member myself, maybe that I can think about that in the future, just making sure that they're aware of these meetings or they're aware of our willingness to participate with them in that. So I understand that that's their job, but if we're not getting the type of participation that we want right now, I think we can kind of say to ourselves, okay, maybe we just have to make another phone call or send another email or show up where they're going to be, because that's what lobbyists do. If you go to Montpelier, they're there every single day in those halls, grabbing a senator or grabbing a representative when they come out of lunch or when they come out of a meeting or whatever. So, you can be more active if someone wanted to take on that role.
We are their constituents.
Okay.
Right, for sure. Yeah, I just think that obviously we're not capable to be in Montpelier every day, but when the session ends in May 10th, that's when they come back to their Christmas fest, when they come back to their hometown, and they're going to be, with their community again. So, just maybe not letting so much time go by before we invite them to the table again, and then just keep inviting them to the table. Keep on it, because that's what lobbyists do, and that's how they get their laws passed.
Thank you very much. Okay, I'll entertain a motion to move into executive session for contracts and personnel.
I'll make the motion 8:52.
At 8:52. So we'll take a 8-minute break till 9 p.m. and we'll try to keep it quick. Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
No.